We will call to order the regular board meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez, and with me today is Commissioner June Brown
Present.
and Commissioner William Cressy.
Also present.
Next item is consideration of the agenda, and I believe what we're doing is just skipping for now the approval of any meeting minutes.
No objections.
Okay, thank you. Next is the interim executive director's report. Mrs. Spera, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Cressy. I have directed the Community Services Department to organize training for all board staff. Part of the training will be the standard format for election judges, so the staff has a clear and comprehensive understanding of the election day processes and procedures. I believe that it would also be helpful for staff to provide feedback to the Judges Department on ways to improve training so that in many of the issues that continue to occur on Election Day may be addressed in a more organizational-wide manner. From my personal experience while conducting post-elections canvass procedures, I truly believe that many errors can be corrected and addressed through better training. The dates for training are set for the 6th, 8th, 9th, 12th, and 14th of May. Please let me know if any of the commissioners would like to be part in the training session. I am working with the new Director of Procurement in order to bring her up to speed on both the board's procurement processes and to help her become situated within the board's organization. My emphasis is currently on the upcoming expiration of contracts, which may need to be extended, renewed, and/or rebid in order to ensure continuity and overall alignment of the board's organizational needs. The proposed new early voting super site has now been fully vetted and appears in line with the board's operational needs. I have both PVL and IT conduct a full assessment, and both have found the space to be suitable. I am still scheduling a final meeting to make sure that no outstanding issues remain and to ensure that all divisions and staff involved in the early voting process are aligned and ready to move forward. The status at the board space at the warehouse remains in flux. Unless I am cautioned otherwise by the city, I plan on conducting another walkthrough next week. I will make sure that all parties involved are aware of our concerns about the timeliness of any planned work so that we are on track for the upcoming elections. As always, I will inform the board of the status of the work being conducted and any and all moving parts as soon as possible. And that concludes my report.
Mhm, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Quick, when you said the alignment, and especially for procurement, you know where I'm going. Is there any status on net woven?
We are, so staff and actually Catalina and Amanda have been working thorough, and Catalina actually is working on the actual procurement live module, and she has made a lot of recommendations for improvement. So between I and her have tested it lately, and we have
Great,
requested new updates.
okay.
Good. I'm glad that, we're looking at it
Oh,
from
we definitely are.
a different point of view and seeing what needs to be, what improvements need to be done, and hopefully it'll get done soon. So, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will proceed now with our Public Information Director, Ms. Max Bever. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a few updates on my end from communications. We continue to follow up on creating videos from our voter engagement forum, as well as our final survey report. I look forward to sharing a draft video with the Commissioners this week. You can take a look and review. We have edits that we can provide, but I want everyone to take a look at it before we release that ultimately publicly. Looks like we're turning a 5-hour event into a 90-minute video that captures really the best hits and is much more accessible, I think, video than the full 5 hours would be too. I joined a panel discussion last week titled Building Better Election Websites. that was hosted by the Elections Group and the Center for Civic Design to discuss our redesign of chicagoelections.gov. It was a good opportunity to show the advice that we followed from the Center for Civic Design, as well as our voter survey. Many of the different election authorities that were on the call were very interested in that initial survey that we put out. We shared that information, as well as the best practices that we learned as part of our process to turn that into an award-winning website. We did share that on our social media as well.
Yes.
And earlier this month, I joined the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce on their show Community Unity on CAN TV to discuss how the Chicago Board of Elections operations work, as well as our preparations heading into the 2026 elections. That link was also shared on our social media.
Great.
That ends my report.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? But, Max, thank you for being out there and, engaging with the public, participating in these professional organizations, because I think that is one way we can show everybody how we're, we are at the forefront of, elections. And I thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Max.
Next item is old business, infrastructure projects and changes in election administration, including electronic poll books and voting equipment. Mrs. Barrett, anything? No updates. Thank you. Mr. Lasker, legislation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along with Derek Plata and Max Weber, we are tracking 4 bills for which there's hearings today by the Illinois House Elections Ethics and Elections Committee. One of the bills does not really apply to us, although it might help out a little bit. It's House Bill 1153. It would require local governments, like municipalities, the city of Chicago, to post any vacancies in their elected offices on their own websites. And then that vacancy couldn't be filled until at least 15 days after it's posted. So that does not apply to us as the election authority, but it is public notice. It's helpful for us to make sure that we get.
So their obligation would be just posting?
That's correct. It's well, these are vacancies where they would also have the duty to fill those vacancies, at least by a temporary appointment. But that can't happen until 15 days after they post the vacancy on their website.
But it would be our,
It just lets us know so that we can calculate whether a special election, sometimes a vacancy is filled temporarily until the remainder of the term is filled by a special election.
oh, okay. I'm
So-
thinking totally different. I'm
This
thinking
is-
about just regular jobs, vacancies.
No, this is elected officials, yeah.
Okay.
Just elected officials, yeah. So that doesn't apply directly to us. The next bill, House Bill 1433, we've discussed it previously. It's about giving academic credit, college credit, university credit to election judges. So that appears to be moving forward with hearings today.
But not CLE credit?
Not
If-
CLE credit, that's not included. No, we've made that ask, but it's not included in this bill. House Bill 1445 is about early voting and election day voting at universities in Chicago. So we currently run 3 days of early voting for specific, for campuses around the city. This bill, if approved, would apply to the University of Chicago, University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC, Chicago State University, and Northeastern Illinois University. It would expand the days of early voting from the 6th day before the election all the way up until the day before the election, and then also including on election day as vote centers. So, Clint Hurd is in the room. He's the division manager that handles early voting and vote centers, and so we're going to continue talking with him about being prepared to keep those sites open for a few extra days if this bill
Well-
passes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, UIC and I think Northeastern are already early voting sites, correct?
They
But
are,
the
but
3
we
days-
conduct 3 days from the 6th day to the 4th day.
Yeah.
That's the current requirement.
Right.
This would expand it from the 6th day all the way through and including election day.
So can we use the early voting sites as these?
Well, that's
That-
the idea, is that we just stay in that room
Okay.
for a
Couple more
few
days.
extra days. Yep.
Works for me.
I'm just wondering how big those rooms are to allow for, like the day before Election Day and the weekend before.
So actually, Commissioners, good morning. Actually, at each one of those locations that I spoke about, we have more than enough room. Our main objective when getting those sites is we look for 1,200 square feet. Right now is a footprint. We're trying to expand that in some cases. Some cases we haven't been able to do that. But with the locations as far as Chicago State, UIC, those spaces, and University of Chicago, those spaces are equivalent to that. So we have good spots there.
Now, Having voted at UIC, it does appear to be adequate space. Unfortunately, it's up, you have to
Yes.
take an elevator up to get to it, so maybe this legislation might get us a ground floor space.
Well,
Put us in the
UIC
bowling alley.
Yeah. UIC has been good with working with us.
Good.
And I just received this yesterday from Adam and took a look at it, so reaching out to them is our next steps about what to do. Unfortunately, UIC is in the Commons area. So,
Yeah.
you know, as you said, if you've been there, there's a lot of openings, a lot of stores, a lot of food vendors. So it is difficult to get to.
Right.
The thing about it is the students, one thing the students using it is it's a little bit more difficult for voters coming in from other locations to
Right.
find it.
But it's a good building because it's right off of Halsted and the bus stop is there and up from the L stop, so it's a
Correct.
good location.
Correct.
Just within the building, you know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, correct. Parking is a little bit troublesome as well, but yes.
Okay. That just gets me thinking also about our 3 top early voting sites and how we wanted, we had issues, long waiting lines
Are those the sites, are we
on the
speaking
north
of
side,
42, 44, and 32,
maybe?
maybe?
You know, 42
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
So 42, as far as lines, 42 is more of as the Alderman Committeeman wanting to move that site so they can move from the south side of the river to the north side of the river, which they feel will cover more of their constituents in that area.
Okay.
Because there's nothing on the north side. There were lines, and usually lines are the most, we get more lines during presidential elections. So
Yeah.
that's when that really sticks out. So
Well, I
44
think this 2026, we might see long
Correct.
lines too.
I agree. But we're in the process, I don't know if we touched on this or you wanted to.
Communicated yet, but we have started meetings about those 3 locations.
Right.
So we're following up, they're following up, and I will follow up.
Good,
So
okay, 'cause
we've
I-
already surveyed, we've already went out and looked at sites in 44, so that ward is complete, and we're going to compile that list. 42 will be completed by next week, and we'll compile a list of potential sites for there, and then we move on to 32. So all 3 of those sections are being hit. We provided Mr. Sperry with information on the whole city and the location, so she's able to see just the square footage and what's we're using. So we're going to try our best. The only thing to that is we might have to move from a public site to a private site. And there's a cost issue with that and finding those locations.
Well, let's,
I have a question, because I know the students from U of C, do we have that type of relationship with them? They came down here about a year ago.
Oh.
University of Chicago?
Right.
Yes, we have a good working relationship.
Okay, and so setting up a site there, is that an issue? Because they were very active. I
Oh,
remember
we have-
following up with them.
Actually, Commissioner, we have a large site there. The Reynolds Building is what we
Okay.
use at this point.
well, I don't quite remember all of their concerns or suggestions. But they had some good recommendations. And I don't know if there was any follow-up, but are you saying you still have contact with those, or that particular group?
I'm
or-
actually in contact with the administration. That particular group was a student advocacy group.
USHI, Chicago, I think it is.
Right,
Yeah.
and they're in conversations with them as well. I know one of the things they wanted to do that this bill does is the amount of time they wanted voting on at the location. So that's one thing. So that's going to help. Other than that, I have not been in contact with them directly, but I am in contact with the administration. So
Because
I
I know
con-
they have a big collaborative partnership with other organizations in that area and around. And they have a civic engagement program, so I was just
Yeah.
wondering if we're still connected, because they were very interested and engaged, so.
Yeah, and we're going to start reaching out. Well, we've actually reached out and sent out the calendars already for the upcoming elections. So all our early voting sites know when we're going to be there for both March and for both March and November. So we've already started those communications with city agencies and the universities as well.
The legislation just addresses those three because they're public?
That's correct, public universities. There's others on the list throughout the state,
But-
but again, it's only public. The legislators can't force
Yeah.
us upon the private universities. So for example, University of Chicago is voluntarily having us come in, but has been a good partnership.
So if the other private universities would agree to extend the voting days, that would, to match this
We-
legislation?
Well, they could do that. The board has flexibility in its early voting sites to choose as its temporary branch locations, whatever locations work for it on whatever time frame works. So, Clint could talk more about the other, because those aren't the only
No, we
university
have
sites we've got.
University of Chicago, Eastern Illinois.
Right.
So those sites, as I said, we got great relationships with those sites. So they're willing, once we reach out to them and tell them what the
Well-
new, if the billing legislation goes through,
Yeah,
which way
and
we
then
go.
there's a question of, do we have the person power
Correct.
The manager.
for that? And do we have sufficient touchscreens when, so I don't know any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to it,
Yeah.
but
Well, I have a feeling in the current environment of things with universities, that universities, even the private ones, would be more than happy to work to help get a nice election turnout. So, heck, Loyola's got a lot of buildings right there off of Michigan Avenue, and
the thing about some of the locations is oversaturating one area,
right.
which is something we run into. I know that the city colleges, for instance, are interested in have been interested in adding more sites. And part of our thing with them is that if they're too congested, we oversaturate one area versus giving another area a
But
chance.
I'm just saying that the current environment, I think universities be more willing than in the past to work with us.
Well, in Loyola, as an example, we do have a precinct there that's, I
Yeah.
believe, a pretty busy precinct.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes just placing a polling place for an early voting site might come into play as well.
Okay. Well, keep us posted on all of this. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So the last bill up for consideration today is House Bill 2998. That's on local election publications. So it would have each local election authority post the requirements, qualifications, and petition filing periods for their local offices. Now, posting it on their website. We already do that.
We do that.
There's not even any time period stated in the statute, but it would make it a requirement to do what we're already doing.
Okay.
Last thing I want to mention, I am planning to attend the meeting this afternoon. It's the Illinois House Ethics and Elections Committee, but they're also intending to discuss the consequences of the Federal SAVE Act. So it'll be interesting to hear what our state legislators have to say with guidance on what that might mean. It's passed the U.S. House, not yet the Senate.
Okay. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Lasker. Okay, so I will now proceed to new business. And first is a professional services agreement with KDX Forensic Consulting LLC for the creation of multimedia training materials, electoral board signature examinations, and other similar services. And be, let's see, okay. And that would be Clint Hurd and Adam.
Yes, Madam Chair, we also have Jim Carley, the manager of the registration division here
Okay.
today.
Jim?
So, yeah, we suggested using Kevin in KDX. He's worked for us for the last few years, and in the past, he did conduct training classes, multimedia training classes for the staff, and right then, we discussed the idea of coming up with like a handbook for the staff. Basically, we definitely want it on the petition checks, but also, we also want it for the rest of our staff, because that's part of processing registrations, right, and vote by mail is going to do the same thing. So we're hoping to develop a system that will work and go on into the future.
Okay.
So multimedia, we're thinking handbooks, flyers, and even a video, so that election judges could even review it from home. We have election judges both in the precincts, but also here at Central Count for vote by mail. And then the early voting officials, who essentially do the same job as the election judges, but at the early voting sites and vote centers. And then Mr. Kublaki, I had a conversation with him in which he suggested even the idea of posters. He says he's worked in some other jurisdictions where they have posters that they put up in their adjudication rooms or their precincts, so that the public can kind of see what threshold, what sort of advice is being given. So that's the idea, and this contract will also include his services for the upcoming electoral board cycle, for the electoral board challenges in relation to the March 2026 primary.
The videos that are envisioned, will those be professionally produced, or are we going to try doing those in-house?
So the idea, Mr. Kublaki is very enthusiastic about moving forward on these, both with the videos and the written materials. We have yet to officially meet with him because we need the contract executed. So we'll discuss that. Max, Mr. Bever can certainly be a part of these conversations along the lines of, video creation. If that's something that we want professionally done, then that could happen.
Okay.
But we haven't
We haven't
finalized
gotten
any
to that
decisions like
point
that yet. Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Before you finalize any decisions, and when you were presenting this contract to us, isn't it, wouldn't you have to figure out the scope of work so you can make up how much it would cost or what the timeline is?
There's a scope of work that's included in the contract, and there's an hourly rate, and there's a cap on it. And Mr. Kublaki believes that he can do all of this and the electoral board work, because he's done the electoral board work for several cycles, and he thinks that he'll, without difficulty, be able to fit that all in under the cap.
Now, I was looking through some old guidelines for PSAs. Was this vetted out?
No, as a professional service, it's exempt.
Right, right. It's a professional services, but our guideline says it should be vetted. I don't know, I got the one I got here. So I'm wondering why this wasn't, to see if we got the most reasonable rate for this? Because is it $300 an hour?
That is a rate that was bid out several years ago, but.
That was
so-
for handwriting though, right? It was 2 something and then 3 something, if I remember correctly. But there's a guideline on PSAs that they are, before they're presented, they are to be bidded out?
The executive director initiated a guidelines, policies for PSAs where they are submitted, the request is submitted to the executive director, and finance approves that there's budgeting for it. And that's the policy that was followed here with our interim executive director, who is aware of this. And
That's another concern. Was she given proper time to vet this? She just came on the Monday before the last meeting.
she and I have had several conversations about it, and I think we were talking about it even before. I don't remember for sure, but she hasn't expressed any concerns to me.
Well, I mean,
I was made aware of recently.
Yeah, but I'm more concerned about your concerns about it. Is it, and our concerns as a board? Are we covered in this? Because I do specifically, I'm looking for them now. Remember guidelines that gave step by step that was what was supposed to happen with the PSA.
Well, this PSA was handled the way I would say all the PSAs have been handled since I was trained into how to do it by my predecessor and the,
Yeah, I'm just
And
talking
then
from
executive director.
2017 on. So if there's been some change, then I'd like to know, because I'm looking at dated material then. If there's a change, I'd like the new guidelines.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
Nope.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve a professional services agreement with KDX Forensic Consulting LLC for forensic document examiner and handwriting expert services at the rate of $300 per hour, not to exceed $60 per hour for administrative assistance, and with the total compensation not to exceed $100,000 over the term of this agreement, which is from April 22nd, 2025 through April 21st, 2026.
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain.
I will second. So it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
And
Commissioner
you will
Brown
abstain.
Yes.
And I will vote aye. Motion passes.
One quick question, I know
Yes.
the motion is passed, but the durational date, it starts today?
Yes.
Is there a particular reason why it's starting when we don't have electoral until November or December?
For the creation of the training materials.
And this is an update to training materials that we already have, right? So we're starting it today?
Well, we discussed this, there was an old PowerPoint that's made, but he's not updating that PowerPoint. He's creating new training materials.
There is some online training too, because I took that. So I'm just wondering what the timeline is and why we need that particular timeline.
Well, it's just the staff, this is a good time for the staff to be working on it, so that the staff has informed me that they're ready to start on it as soon as we can get the contract approved, so
Mhm.
that was the
Okay.
idea.
Okay. Next is a contract with Larry Hansen LLC for consulting and training services related to the board's GIS mapping systems. That's Carolina Roman and Rick Thurman.
Good morning. The procurement office is requesting your consideration and approval of a sole source contract with Geographic Information Systems mapping expert Larry Hansen. The contract will allow Mr. Hansen to continue working on various projects in 2025 in preparation for the 2026 election cycle. Mr. Hansen is now thoroughly familiarized with logistical and procedural necessities of elections in general and the board in particular, a process any new consultant would need to undergo before understanding the tasks stated in the original RFP. Mr. Hansen developed the current implementations of software and data structures and is in the process of ensuring districts and boundary staff sufficiently trained to operate and manage these processes as intended. The sole source justification was submitted to the procurement office by Rick Thurman, who is the assistant supervisor in the registration division and who is the staff's team leader for related mapping projects in the districts and boundaries department. The procurement office reviewed the sole source justification form and the detailed services and agrees that this procurement is exempt from the bidding process. The procurement office confirms the appropriate steps and analysis were executed for the sole source and recommends Larry Hansen to be awarded a PSA contract not to exceed $200,000.
There was a short-term 4-month, it wasn't a sole source, but a short-term 4-month contract for redistricting and training. What was completed during that? What redistricting projects? I know you may not know.
Mr. Thurman.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The original one for the beginning of the year was basically just to be ready in case we had to undergo redistricting. We needed to kind of make sure we were covered for this period. Now that that period is wrapping up, we really want to go ahead and complete the job of making sure that the staff, and I and the rest of the staff are ready to go ahead and take on the full responsibilities that we've developed and that Mr. Hanson has helped us develop over, especially the last year with our ArcGIS Enterprise Server, and just make sure that we are ready to move forward. The Enterprise Server was probably the main innovation that we've had lately, and that was last year, where we were able to put together, he was able to develop several interactive mapping applications, and also we started the process of moving our data that we actually use to make the maps, addresses and wards, precincts, and all the other boundaries, to that source, so that we could have a more unified way of accessing the data, correcting and updating, and making sure we're all using the most up-to-date and accurate data that we develop. And we only have to make an upgrade or correction in one place, and all the applications on all the PCs will be able to access it all at one time. That is basically what we plan to do over this next year, this next several months to the end of the year, is to be able to try out making a new set of maps. One of them is our school board maps that we need to update from 10 districts to 20 districts, and do it in a network-oriented way this time instead of a PC-oriented way. We also have several of those apps that have been developed in the last few months, and we hope to get those into shape for putting on the web, using the website. If we can get those main applications done, then I think we'll be in pretty good shape. The main process, what we want to do now is, instead of having Mr. Hanson make some of these maps and show us what we can do, we want to make sure that we make the maps, and he is available just to help coach us as we develop and make sure that we understand the process of making these applications.
That was my big concern, is he's training our staff on how to use these systems. Is he also documenting it, so?
Yes,
we can-
we're documenting it together.
Right.
He's documenting some parts, and then I'm documenting a lot of parts myself as I go. One of
Because
the things that we're trying to do is, as we go through, for instance, the school board series of maps that we're doing, instead of just simply figuring it out as we go, we're stopping, taking the time, write it down, type it out, make sure that we actually have a template that we can then, and think forward as to not only how are we getting this done for the school board series, but how will this work when we apply it to any other series of maps that we do.
Good, because if anything should happen to Mr. Hanson, we would want, not to say anything bad happens to him.
Correct.
In my past, I had someone who went on vacation and met a gal and never returned, so it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Right.
But as long as that, also, the intellectual property for what he's developing, is that retained by the board?
My understanding is, yes, it's fully retained by the board.
Okay.
I think it's a main.
Just as long as we've covered that. Excellent.
Oh, sure, no problem. And actually, another part of this is, I want to make sure that not only when Mr. Hanson leaves, I want to make sure in case I leave or any of the rest of the staff.
You're not
leaves,
allowed
that
to.
we have this. Well, we just want to be sure all the way around that we have all the bases covered, and we have, that institutional knowledge is really institutional.
Excellent, thank you.
That's great. Well,
Yes.
On the 23rd, December 23rd, from that meeting, those were the main two things that we were getting done, was the training and the redistricting project. How many of those were completed?
Let's see,
How
on the
many people were trained?
redistricting.
And how many people were trained?
Well, the redistricting, we were more or less in like the earlier development stages of that. So I would imagine, I would have to say that we only got so far with that. We didn't quite finish that. Now that we are getting into some of these other processes, the school board and the interactive mapping and possibly some field applications, where we've had to kind of shift focus and deal more with those. We will make sure that the Redistricting is something that we, as we get these other things that have a real timeline accomplished, we'll make sure that the redistricting skills are also developed for the whole board, pardon me, for the whole staff as well,
Okay,
and documented.
so were we charged? He didn't do any, like, in the prep? Were we
No,
charged?
he did the prep, and and he's been documenting that. So that it's been down on paper, and we'll go ahead and continue to, we just haven't devoted as much time to all of us going through that and doing the process together. But he's been documenting
And when we gave the 4-month contract, because after he had completed his 2 extension, from the notes it said that, I think you said this, Mr. Lasker, that this would go back to procurement for determination, and then it would be RFP. Was that done?
That's the sole source justification. So-
Okay, so you had someone come back and do the sole source when you didn't do it for the 4-month? We didn't need it for the 4-month? Since that
Well, because that was a PSA, as a PSA capped at 100,000. As I've mentioned, that's the way that those PSAs have been.
We'll
procured.
talk about that
Yeah,
one
okay.
after, but, because I think I've confined that guideline for you. But I also noticed he put kind of scared me, I don't know if it scared anybody else, the attachment for the hours looked like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's more than our people work for 7.5 hours, don't they? So is that getting us dangerously close to the line from independent contractor to employee? I would leave that to Mr. Lasker, that's not you, Mr. Thurman.
Thank you.
But going back to the redistricting issues, so none of those have been completed?
Well, we did a lot of the setup to be ready to do the analysis, but the next step would have been to start to put together particular, well, we did put together a couple of precinct maps for a few particular wards. And then it turned out we did not take that forward to any alderman or for consultation or approval. So that would have probably been our next step. So at that, we went as far as we could at that moment.
Okay, and what about the training? How many people have been trained?
Well, with the redistricting, probably mainly me, as far as that's concerned.
Okay, so how many do we need to have trained?
Probably, to be safe, we would probably want to go ahead and get our other 2 staff members involved in that as well. It probably would have been this, if we'd have gone to the next step of making some particular maps for the, to consult with the alderman, that probably would have been the point at which we would have brought them in as well.
When he started in 21, was this part of the deal for him to also train, like train the trainer and have people prep for this?
Yes, and he's been doing that. The main, whenever we started, the main job was to learn how to use ArcGIS Pro, which was Esri's newest version of software and the one that they are managing and using for everyone right now. Before that, we had ArcMap, which was their previous release. ArcMap is getting retired by Esri, and they won't support it anymore after early next year. So that was something that had to be done. We got through that process, but ArcGIS Pro can be used as either a network or as a standalone desktop PC application. We were primarily at that point thinking and using it as a standalone desktop PC on each of our individual workstations in the office. And with last year and the development of ArcGIS Enterprise and getting that installed, now we're looking at this as a network-oriented operation, much in the same way that our IT department is now installing Office 365 around the office instead of having just simply standalone Office applications on each individual PC. And it's really a similar kind of focus where you can start to collaborate more easily, and it'll also make it easier for us to develop some web-oriented applications as well, so that we're not just printing out paper maps and people have to come in and get a paper map, but they can actually hopefully go on our website and pick and choose the layers that they want to look at and kind of put together their own custom map on the fly, which will probably be a lot easier for them as customers. It'll also be easier for us because we won't have so many custom requests for, can you put this and that together and tweak it here and there. They can tweak it
Geomapping
themselves.
and those kinds of services are
Sure.
available, so we can merge and purge those. I understand that, but I'm not understanding the timelines, because I specifically remember from December being told that that 4 month was to work him out of having to train us and also have the redistricting done. So I won't ask you, I'll ask our executives over here. Does this appear to be something that we should move forward with now? Or it needs additional vetting?
The plan has always been that this additional contract would be executed to get him through the end of the year. The sole source request didn't come in time for the expiration of his contract at the end of the year. So we entered a short-term PSA so that he could continue working, and now the idea is that he's got until the end of the year to finish all the training and all the loose ends. You asked the question about, looking like a full-time employee rather than a contractor.
Mhm.
I have certainly raised that concern around here following the previous audit reports we've had. And I think that, we did not have in-house GIS employees when the redistricting following the 2020 census was required for all the districts. So we brought in Mr. Hansen. 10 years ago, 10 years before that, we brought in a contractor who did it all by itself. And there was no real creation of an in-house staff to do that. So this has been a bit of a lengthy process, but the goal is now, the end is in sight at the end of this year, where the expectation is that Mr. Thurman and the rest of the staff down there are fully trained in so that we no longer need to go to outside contractors for these kinds of things. Mr. Hansen has been a longtime contractor now, since 2021, but it has been expressly communicated to him by myself on several occasions and others that this should be the end of it. I have communicated with Mr. Thurman that it's my advice to the board that there is no contract in 2026, because the expectations are that staff should be ready to do everything that needs to be done moving forward. So I think that this has been, some of these plans have been, some of Mr. Hansen's work with the board has been delayed due to things like the legislature and the city council not finishing their districts on the timeline that they were supposed to.
I think that's what we were told for the 4-month one, though. That's why he needed a 4-month contract, because of the delay earlier.
Well, when we entered the contract in December, we were anticipating and discussing that Mr. Hansen would be with us for the rest of the year. And if I didn't make that clear back then, I apologize. I thought that was
Not an issue.
communicated. but,
Just want to be clear
Yeah.
on the
But so
spending
this,
and the
this has
funding.
been the plan, for him to continue out through the rest of this year. And it's basically on a technicality that we didn't do this RFP contract back in December when we didn't have a procurement officer, and the request came in too late. And so in order to just kind of buy the time for this contract today to happen, we did the short-term PSA so that Mr. Hansen could continue on with his services, which he now will be completing by the end of December.
So the work that has been done on the 4-month is satisfactory for what we're paying, or for what we paid so far? I have no idea what we paid him.
These rates have been, this was bid out when he started in 2021, and he's still,
And he's had 2 extensions since then, I understand.
and is still receiving the same pay rate. So I would think that the pay is, still
Well, no,
competitive.
I'm not talking about the rate,
and-
I mean the amount that we've expended as a board.
The finance office has been provided the money, it's been in our budget, it's the rates that were competitively bid. So I think that, I haven't heard anyone complain about it. It has been my advice that he needs to stay at that level.
Okay, well, let me stop on the finance saying it's in the budget, because that's a projection and an actual, and we don't just spend it because it's in the budget, right? We agree on that. But I'm just asking for reasonableness and conservation of the board's resources and assets if we're doing this appropriately right now.
I believe so.
Okay.
Also, you know, they have extended, I don't know if Mr. Thurman mentioned it today, they would love for the three of you individually to come down and see what they're doing down there. I have gone down, and Mrs. Sparrow's gone down, and we've taken a look, and I'm personally quite impressed. This kind of map-making work is sort of fun. I enjoy seeing what they're doing. It seems to me that they've come a long way. Mr. Thurman seems very knowledgeable now about what's going on as compared to when we first brought in Mr. Hanson. So I'm impressed with what they've been doing down there. They've got a lot of good ideas for future projects. They're going to continue to be a better and better public service, I think, as they continue to work on them.
Mr. Thurman, if I may, Commissioners, approximately how many different overlapping jurisdictional boundaries do we have in the city of Chicago? I'm just trying to get
Like
on the
Congress,
record.
state senate, state rep?
Exactly. I'm just trying to
Right.
get on the record the magnitude
Right.
of and the complexity of this mission.
I made a spreadsheet the other day, and it was, I think it was at least 20. I mean,
Yeah.
once you start adding them up, it kind of surprises me. And not to mention, we also have a couple of other layers that we are maintaining that help us make those district maps, like the census boundaries, which are far, far more detailed down at the block level, as well as now, one of the things that we've started putting on Enterprise is a layer that shows us individual residential addresses throughout the city.
Wow.
So, and that's 480,000 addresses plus.
Can't get much more
We get
granular
a few
than that.
extra ones every day.
Yeah.
So we hope to use that, and we've already been using that to sort of get a more fine-tuned idea of, being able to do our analysis
Yeah.
as to what's actually going on when you are looking at things like early voting and whatnot, as to where people are coming from, and when you're trying to find out sites. We're also seeing if we can possibly, in the future, integrate that with voter registration operations to do a better job of making sure that anyone who applies as a voter, as a registered voter, really is at a residential address. And that's helped to kind of bring out some little details here and there around town that we were not able to pay attention to before.
I only bring it up because if anybody out there watching, the state of Illinois has the most elected officials and elected offices of any other state by far.
Yes.
And that really comes to the head here in the city of Chicago. And in just in the past few years, we've added to that our police district councils and then our school board, which is still in flux. So this is the place where this is complicated. So if somebody from outside Chicago is looking at it and saying, well, why can we, it's so easy for us to do this in Nebraska. Yeah, that's Nebraska, this is Illinois, this is Chicago. So that's, we are at the, for better or for worse, we're at the top of the heap when it comes to this sort of mapping. And I've been downstairs, and you folks do incredible
Yes.
work for the tasks that's put before you.
And the school board, which is a brand-new creation, the newest of all the layers,
Right.
is also interesting in terms of time, because right now we're looking at how do you even try to portray that these are, not everyone's going to come up to vote at the same time. This next election, the 2026 general, will be the only time that all 20 districts across the city will be on the ballot at the same time. Then they go on to a rotating schedule till 2032 in the next census. After 2032 in the next census and redistricting, then they go on to a three-way rotating schedule So it's not just a matter of where, it's when that we hope to make clear.
So you're playing three-dimensional chess down there, is what you're telling me, yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's fun.
Very good.
Yes.
Any
Any other
questions at this moment? No? Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thurman, is there a motion to approve a contract with Larry Hansen LLC for GIS consulting and training services at the rate of $150 per hour and with total compensation not to exceed $200,000 over the term of this agreement, which shall begin May 1st, 2025, and shall expire at the end of December 31st, 2025?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Okay. I will second. Is there a motion? Commissioner Brown has abstained. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Hernandez votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next is contract renewal with Esri Inc. for computer equipment, software maintenance, and support related to ArcGIS mapping services. And here we have, again, Carolina Roman and, if needed, Rick Thurman.
Thank you. The Procurement Office is requesting your consideration and approval for a renewal contract with Esri Inc. for a GIS mapping system called ArcGIS for redistricting and map-making purposes. The ArcGIS mapping system includes software licenses, several desktop computers, and a computer server provided by the company Esri Inc. The system allows the District and Boundaries Department to provide ongoing precinct consolidation, local option and mental health district referendum mapping, new school board and police council district and decennial redistricting procedures. The current licensing agreement and maintenance and support contract expired on April 21st, 2025, and staff is requesting a one-year extension with Esri Inc. The renewal is for 1 year with effective dates of April 22, 2025 through April 21st, 2026. I did want to note, Mr. Thurman and Mr. Carley were able to negotiate with Esri a grace period for us of a month, I believe, so that it doesn't cause a disruption in service. Please consider granting approval for the licensing, maintenance, and support to Esri Inc. for the ArcGIS mapping system in the amount not to exceed $29,921.
Okay, thank you. Are there, and I assume, Mr. Thurman, this is what you were talking about in terms of software and hardware to
Correct.
improve your department and
Yes.
all of what you're doing?
Right. This is basically three different types of software. The ArcGIS Pro is what's on the individual desktops. That's kind of like Office, if you want to think of it that way. And then there's ArcGIS Enterprise, which is the server-oriented software that is on the network and that we tie into that helps us, integrate our operations. And third is Business Analyst, which is, it's more analytical and is primarily there in case we do need to get into redistricting. Since this will be Mr. Hansen's last period with us, and we'll be taking that on ourselves, and we want to make sure that we're ready for any redistricting that happens in the future. So it would be good to have Business Analyst still on hand so that we can get our practice with analysis in between all of our other jobs whenever opportunity arises. We probably will need to, along with all of this, when we get the licenses, Esri does have a lot of training material online, and that's going to be a really big source for us that we will need to dive into on a periodic and constant basis. We probably need to devote, I'm not sure exactly how much, but a certain number of hours per week just to getting online and training so that when the next job or project pops up, we already are ready for it.
Okay, Thank you.
Yes.
And,
Thank you.
and one question, Mr. Thurman, and I take it there's sufficient security protocols over all of these systems so that someone from the outside can't come in and cause any of our problems? Cause any
I
problems?
believe so. I mean, that's probably more IT's
Okay.
bailiwick. We kind of depend on them to
But you have
let
to
us
sign
know.
on and use a password and stuff to
Sure.
use-
Oh,
okay.
absolutely, yes. Esri likes to be paid,
Yeah.
and so they require you to log in, and it double checks with them every time you log in as to whether or not it's going to let you continue.
Okay.
And I did go in this morning, and yes, their 30-day extension is working for us right now. I was able to get in and start up the school board mapping project, and they were good on their word for continuing the extension.
Good to hear that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Is there a motion to approve a software licensing and hardware maintenance and support agreement with Esri Inc. for continued use of the ArcGIS professional redistricting and mapping system at a cost not to exceed $29,921 over the term of the agreement, which is April 22nd, 2025 through April 21st, 2026?
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is our legal report. Mr. Lasker?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Speaking of redistricting, one thing that we will not have to do is redistrict again the state legislative maps. The Illinois Supreme Court, just after our last board meeting, dismissed the challenge to the legislative remapping that happened in 2021. The plaintiffs had filed a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the new districts, saying they were not compact, contiguous, or substantially equal in population, also claiming they were an unlawful gerrymander that made it more difficult for Republican candidates to get elected. The court did not rule on the merit of those claims, but rather dismissed the case for laches, which is, of course, a legal term for when you waited too long to bring your action to court. This action was filed directly in the Supreme Court under original jurisdiction there. The action was not filed until 3 years and 4 months after the map was affirmed, enacted in 2021, or as the Supreme Court said, it was more than 3 years and 2 election cycles after the redistricting was enacted in 2021. The good news is that those maps will stay in place for us and will continue through the 2030 census. And other than that, I'm continuing to work with monthly meetings with the Department of Justice on ADA, NetWoven. Going to get started with the handwriting training classes. Or not classes, but the creation of that. I'm curious to sit in on some of that. Working on the 2026 election calendar and various procurements with our new procurement officer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lasker.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go now to financial reports. We have a balance sheet and voucher listing for the City of Chicago, a 2025 appropriation number 25-02, dated April 22nd, 2025, in the amount of $1,972,948.52. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. We also have a balance sheet and voucher listing for the County of Cook, a 2025 appropriation number 25-02, dated April 22nd, 2025, in the amount of $4,557.15. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Next is public comment. Did we, Sarah, receive any requests for public comment? No? Okay. Is there a need for executive session today, Mr. Lasker?
No, Madam Chair.
No. If not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.